Prynawn da, croeso i cyfarfod. Diolch am bawb am dod. Hello and welcome to Merthyr Tydfil County Borough Council Thriving Merthyr Tydfil Scrutiny on Tuesday, 4th of November 2025. Please note that this meeting may be recorded and broadcast via the authority's internet site. Any person in view of camera is, by virtue of attending, consenting to being filmed and to the possible use of those images and sound recordings being used as outlined. The images and sound recording may also be used for training purposes. Agenda item 1, apologies for absence.
Councillor John Thomas and our new youth representative Dylan Thomas.
Okay, no worries.
Declan is joining. He's just on the road a minute, but he is joining.
Okay.
Sarah King says she'll be a little late.
Thanks, Paula. Okay. Item agenda 2, declarations of interest. Anybody have any declarations?
No.
No. Okay. Item agenda 3, minutes of previous meetings. Councillor Jones has highlighted there's a discrepancy on with the composition.
Yes, the composition of today's meeting. Howard Jackson has been put under the councillors there, so his name needs to be put under Cortes.
Okay. Thanks, Councillor Jones. Okay, anything else? No, it was whenever any vote. So you noticed one other thing, didn't you? You said we'll pick that up. Okay. Item agenda 4, action logs. Since the report was published, some information was shared. Sorry, Chair. Sorry, Clive. I'm all over. Sorry, I had a blowout on my tyre. Just arrived, yeah. So minutes of previous meeting, pages 5 to 8. Has anybody got anything on the minutes? No?
No, they look they're fine.
I know they're under it, Chair.
Yeah.
I support that.
Yeah, and Phil's supporting it. Okay, thank you. Right, briefly. Item agenda 4, action logs. Some information was shared yesterday regarding the Gleeburn site. The actions noted from the empty building workshops are being addressed in the report and be presented later in this agenda. There's some actions from the biodiversity report which we're waiting on responses for, and we'll provide an update ASAP. Okay? Yeah. Okay, moving on. Agenda item 5, waste management strategy.
David Jones.
Councillor David Jones, you presenting?
I am, Chair. Thank you very much. Until last year, the strategies that were in place ensured that Merthyr Tydfil CBC were on or above the target set by Welsh Government for recycling and waste management. Available figures show that we are currently unlikely to hit the current target of 70% of waste reused or recycled.
Sorry, Councillor John. We can't see you on screen. There we are.
All right.
Got you now. Yeah. Sorry to cut you off in full throw.
Do you want me to go back to the start or continue?
No, you're fine.
Contributory factors are shown to be a plateauing of food waste being recycled at about 50% and high volumes of residual waste being produced per household. There is now a need for an improved waste strategy that ensures we hit our targets and deliver the best options for our residents and businesses. Working with RAP and local partnerships, 5 strategic objectives have been developed within the new strategy, which can be seen in Appendix A. A summary of the responses from the public consultation that ran from 11th of August until the 26th of September can be seen at 5.2 to 5.6 in the report, with more detailed information available at Appendix B. Knowing how thorough this scrutiny panel is, I don't think I need to add anything further, unless there's anything else to add from Judith or Paul.
Anything? No? Okay. I'd like to open up to questions.
Okay.
Councillor Jones?
On page 14 and paragraph 5, where we are now, 5.1. It refers there to the performance as of 2024, that was the latest data available. And the household recycling rate then was 66.24. And it says food waste participation has plateaued at around 50%. Could someone confirm what was the date in 2024 when the data was available? Was it partway through the year or the end of 2024? Because myself, and I'm sure other committee members, would be interested as to what the figure is now.
Yeah, Christian here. Just coming in on my camera. Is my camera working?
Yeah.
Yeah,
No.
right.
Yeah, it is now. Yeah.
Yeah, right, okay. Yeah, so that figure for 2024 was for the full financial year, Councillor Jones.
Right. So it was accurate as of the 31st of March 2024?
Yes.
Right. The food waste participation there, it says it's plateaued at around 50%. That seems to be quite a constant figure. I know there's been various attempts to get that figure down, but it doesn't seem to change that figure. I'm sure as officers, you've probably got a very good idea as to who all the culprits are, or most of them. So in that case, if you know who they are over a long period of time, has court action ever been considered?
Hi, Christian again. So yeah, we currently follow our 3-stage no side waste enforcement policy, and also the keeping up with the, well, it's not called keeping up with the Joneses no more, it's the Welsh Government 70% target policy. So basically what we do is we encourage people to recycle food, but anybody who's not participating in the food curbside service or any other material really in our dry recycling, the wardens do go through the bins, and if it's recycling is found in the bins, we do follow enforcement. So there is a lot of people who have had warning letters, section 46 letters, and even fixed penalty notices for not recycling correctly. But as you can imagine, there's a lot of households out there, and to try and target 30,000 households every fortnight with 4 wardens is quite difficult. So, yeah, we're doing all we can from that side of things. But like I said, it's with 4 wardens and 30,000 properties, you can't get everybody.
No, but later on in the report, it says there's 82% of what goes in the black bin. 52% of it is recyclable, and 30% of it is food in the bin. So we go through a procedure and we pick up people, but we must be talking in the region of, I don't know, 13,000, 14,000 people who participate in this. I still put their food in the waste bin. It's unbelievable.
Yeah, I think it's not just a Merthyr issue. This is a all Welsh, well, national issue really, not just in Wales. Everywhere, that not a lot of members of the public like to recycle food. They think it's dirty, they think it's smelly. So it's not just in Merthyr we're having issues here. It's across the board really in Wales. But we are trying everything we can, not just enforcement, but education as well. And coming up to Christmas now, you see certain things like radio adverts and cinema adverts and things like this, all targeting food waste, because we really, really need the public to buy in to our food waste collection.
I agree, but through you, Chair, it's not rocket science. I mean, I'm sure you agree that we provide the caddy, the blue caddy, we provide the blue bin, which is normally kept outside the property. We even provide the bags free. So it shouldn't be smelly for if you keep emptying the caddy into the bag provided, tie it, put it in the bin outside, It's, as I said, it's not rocket science as to what people should do. So I'll ask the question again. Have we ever considered, as an authority, taking people who are constantly refusing to use the food waste to court?
And yeah, we do. We obviously during the Welsh Government target, 70% target enforcement policy, we do it through that policy. So we do it. And if we open a bit, if the wardens check 400 properties tomorrow and there's food in 400, all 400 people will either, depending on what stage they're on, will either have a Section 46, a warning letter, or a fixed penalty notice. So we are doing that. That is being done now.
So we issue the notice. Do we go back and check that they've
Yes.
complied with the notice?
Yeah, we go back and check. Yeah.
But so there are people complying with the notices, but there's obviously thousands of others who are, the bins aren't being checked or found that they've got food waste in there, because clearly at least 50% of those who should be put in the food waste bins are still dumping it in the black bins.
Yeah, I agree.
So if we follow that and you've gone through the procedure and we've found people who are still putting the food waste in the bin and they've been issued a notice, do we then ultimately take these people to court?
Yeah, so ultimately they get 3 chances at it. So like I say, it's a 3-stage process. And if they're found guilty for the second or even the third time will be a fixed penalty notice of £150. Failing to pay that, then they will end up in court.
And have we had anybody end up in court?
Normally, 9 times out of 10, they pay the fixed penalty notice. But yeah, we have on occasions ended up in court, yeah.
So I think, Chair, and I'm sorry I asked these questions, but
It's
I think
fine.
it's important. But so 9 out of 10 comply. The 1 in 10 that don't, I would like to see figures in here of the numbers that have ultimately not paid the fine and said to the council, I couldn't care less. I'm still going to carry on putting the food waste in the bin, because I think we should highlight the numbers who are doing that.
Is that possible? Get that data to us?
Chair, can I just advise that there's a report coming in the new year to Scrutiny Committee on our performance against the 70% target, which will go into more detail and provide those figures. Obviously, today's report is in relation to the new waste strategy. So by all means, yeah, we can provide those figures, but in the report in the new year.
Right. Thanks, Jude.
Sorry, Jake, I got one other question.
Yeah, I was Councillor Jones made a suggestion earlier, because there's quite a lot of stuff within this report. If there's a topic, if we discussing something on the topic rather than going back and forth. So, is your question related to the food waste or?
No, the one is in the overarching report, Chair.
All right.
It's under paragraph 6 where we want to be, 6.4.
Okay.
It says in there where we want to be is to exceed the 70% recycling target by 2028. Well, I thought that we have to comply with this 70% target by the 31st of March next year. Otherwise, we're just going to cost this authority thousands of pounds. So can I ask why 2028 is in there?
Right, so the first thing, the target was the year previous. We've just gone through, so we've already failed one set of targets. That will be confirmed now in the next month or so, that we've already failed the 2024, 2025 recovery targets. This year, again, we're looking on course to hit the same recycling percentage or roundabout to what we did the previous year. So again, we'll be failing it by by March 31st, 2026. But this is something that we can't just do overnight. To tackle this, to get the percentages we need big changes, and these changes need time to bed in. So the reason why we put 2028 is because we want to implement certain things up until that period, but then these things need time to bed in to achieve that target. It's not as simple as doing something overnight and getting it, and then just achieving it. It doesn't work like that.
Chair, I completely understand that, but the target has been the target of of complying by the 31st of March next year. We don't comply with that, it'll cost us money. So I presume from what you're saying is whatever's in the future report as to what we're going to do to try to comply with that. We wouldn't have complied with it by the 31st of March 26. And from the 1st of April onwards, we are likely to have a charge on us from the Welsh Government. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct. And for the previous year just gone as well, yeah. So the target, the 70% target started from April 2024 to March 31st, 2025. And the figures, confirmed figures, should be available to us mid to end of November for that period. So
have we had to pay any money then for that 1 year?
Excuse me, can I come in there briefly, Councillor Jones? Just for a little bit of background information, we had a waste strategy on the blueprint given to us, and not given to us. We worked on it in 2015. It was a 10-year strategy to get us the 70%. We worked with Welsh Government and RAP to get the 70%, and that was the strategy. Our strategy ran out this summer, so we had to compile a new strategy going forward. The new strategy that we're working on that we worked on is all been through Welsh Government and RAP. Myself and Judith met with Welsh Government at the beginning of last year, and the indication was, nothing in writing, nothing for certain, but the indication was, if we met with RAP, got the new strategy in place and did everything we could to achieve the target, we would not be frowned upon and we would not probably receive fines. Myself and Christian at the moment are having weekly meetings with RAP and Welsh Government, first of all to get the strategy in place, and secondly to introduce different collection methods and try and get the 70%. That is where we are today, and that is why we asking for approval from yourselves with regards to the strategy.
Right. Okay, that does explain the matter.
Can I call? I got Paula, do you want to come in? Councillors?
Yeah, just quickly, Christian or Paul, it doesn't matter. Because Christian was saying, but there, it's across the board, Christian, yeah?
The problem with food waste.
It's across all local authorities. It's not just us, yeah?
No, it's not just us. It's all.
Do you know?
Sorry.
Yeah, but you know, you're within meetings and the new strategy going forward now. When you were saying hopefully we won't get fined. Is there any smarter working we can do with other authorities? But then again, if they're not hitting the target, then obviously something isn't.
We had a CAT report done in 2023. I don't want to go into it too much because this is about the present strategy, but the CAT report indicated that the majority of the authorities were having problems with food waste. The only authorities which were reaching the 70% target were either 3 weekly or 4 weekly refuse. As I say, I don't want to go into the 3 weekly or 4 weekly debate at the moment, but those are the majority of the authorities which are achieving the target, the ones who are 3 and 4 weekly. What comes in the future, we don't know, but obviously we've got to make big decisions over the next couple of years because there's only so much grace Welsh Government are going to give us with regards to fining us, and there's only so much work we can do with them to try and produce different reports and things to get us to the target.
Right, okay, thanks. So, like you said, but then now, these local authorities, are they bigger than us or around the same size or?
Majority of the authorities which are going 3 and 4 weekly are, well, we are the smallest authorities, the majority are bigger than us. Excuse me. But if you notice, the authorities around us who are reaching the 70%, who will reach the 70% when the new figures come out now at the end of the month, are the ones who have either put restrictions on 3 weekly, 4 weekly, or 1 bag or 2 bags every fortnight, whatever it may be. I think we are one of the only, not one of the only, there's a couple of us left, but there's only a couple of authorities left which are fortnightly. Everybody is pushing towards 3 and 4 weekly.
Okay, thanks, Paul. Thank you.
Thanks, both. Councillor Smith?
Thank you, Chair. Can somebody tell me on the food waste, why are we told the residents that men been going around the wheelie bins, checking the wheelie bins, have to make sure there's no food in them. Because wherever I go, people know who I am, and they ask the same questions. Why am we consulted, or let give me a letter drop, or why am we put something on the bins which we promise to say no food in the bins, because it's causing us a major problem.
It's always been our policy for no food in the bins, and I'm sure Christian can answer this, but I'm sure, Christian, you made all the councillors aware, and it's on the website. We haven't done a letter drop, but we are doing a door knocking. But these door knockers, they've only been going since April, and obviously they're educational first, so they're giving people advice and they're telling people exactly what they should do and shouldn't do. We're not automatically going in with a stick and finding people straight away. They are consulting with the resident first.
Paul, I accept everything you're saying, right? But sometimes you get fed up with people answering the same questions, right? And so I want to know how we, as Paul said, how can we improve it? Why can't we put a sign on the bin saying no food in this bin? Because work it out to the residents up there, every vote, are not concerned what you say. They're going to read something on something to stop them doing something.
It is
You can tell them anything you want, but they still carry on winning.
It is on all our leaflets as well. Bill, I get the same. I get the same wherever I go. People have known now that I work in waste, and I get it. You know yourself, when you go down to Merthyr football, when I go up to Dowlais rugby, it's the same. I get it all the time off everybody. You get it probably 10 times as much as me because you see more residents. But I keep on telling them the same thing. You know, we've been doing this for 10 years, not 10 minutes. People need to start doing and listening and looking at the leaflets and getting the information, because the way we are going, we are spending a lot of money on advertising a service which has been running for 10 years.
No, I agree, but should we put something, sorry, Chair, but should we put something, the cost of it, and we put a cost in the paper, but we should, on a council paper, but a cost, how much it's costing to take the food away, and the bins are costing an arm and a leg as well.
Yeah, wait a minute, Chris. When we had a meeting earlier on, myself, Judith and Christian, and a lot of stuff that come back from the consultation was that people are not reading what we pick up. They don't realise we pick up textiles. They don't realise we pick up batteries. So Judith, myself, and Christian obviously had a meeting earlier, and we come up with the idea of going back to basics. And in the Contact magazine, which will go out now before Christmas, it'll be exactly what we collect, where we expect, what we collect them in, and where you can get things from, where you can look for information on the website, where you can look for other things, and just generally go right back to basics. So the whole one page will be on our collections and what the resident needs to do.
Okay, cheers, Paul. Thank you.
Thank you, Bill.
Thank you. And if there's, like, in terms of when you're sending material out, if you can send it to the councillors, if we can share it on our personal pages on social media, like, if you could think of ways that we can help you improve, then please send it to us.
Yeah. No problem at all. We'll sort that out. We'll get I'll send, if there's anything going out which is a bit contentious, Christian or myself will send it to you on something similar to when we've got collection disruptions or something like that. We'll send it on that. But I'm sure Christian did make all the councillors, whether he did or not, Christian can answer that. But I'm sure we did make you all aware that we had 2 wardens starting and they were looking in the bins.
Yeah, you did. It's just like, if it's like literature that we could send out, right? This is our target. This is what it's costing us. If you don't, this is going to equate to this. This could end up in terms of putting your council tax up, that type of thing. Like, so we can constantly drip our message out there for you and us or whatever. So I got a couple more questions. Councillor Thomas, then Phil, and then David. You still there, Gary?
I am. Yeah, I'm here. Sorry, it was technical thinking up on my screen then. Sorry. Yeah. Okay. If I can refer you to either page 36 of the pack or I think it's page 20 of the policy. and it's to do really with commercial waste collection. So, like, we all can see the challenge that we have around the town centre, you know, with massive waste bins on the pavements, you know, blocking, you know, for prams and anyone in wheelchair access can't get past them, right? The big, you know, the big bulky waste, Paul, that you see.
Yeah.
So with the new policy that's coming through from Welsh Government about collection commercial waste, how practical is it really for the council to address that challenge of all these different receptacles we're going to need, right? You know, but the business are going no place to put them. So how are we going to get over that hurdle?
But to be honest, the majority, because this has been in for quite a while, the workplace regs, the majority of the places in town are already on the recycling with us. There's people, you know, the majority of the companies have got either cardboard with us because it's free, they've got cans and plastic with us, and they've got glass with us. Obviously, the glass is the heavy stuff that we want. With regards to the waste from commercial premises, truthfully, we don't want that waste. That's the one that goes negative against us. So the big bins you see in are refuse bins. They're the waste we don't really want. So what we're doing as an authority, we're trying to encourage people to recycle more with us, but to reduce their general waste. But as you say, we've got a problem at the moment in a couple of areas who haven't got for residents who haven't got back entrances, who haven't got back lanes. And you know, we're going through a couple of problems with them leaving their bins out on the footpath all day and people complaining. And if we get a complaint, then we send the wardens round, and then we have a general, you know, just a chat to them and ask them if they can get them in. You know, there's a lot of places in Merthyr who haven't got back entrances because they're old terrace streets and things like that, and it is a problem. But truthfully, in the town centre, the majority of the town centre is not our bins no more. They are Thomas waste or Biffa waste, and the only way we can go around that is by highways enforcing against obstructions on the highway, rather than a waste complaint.
I see that, but I also can see the other side of the coin there really is, you know, they haven't got nowhere to put their bins, have they? They haven't, right? In some places, and it's a difficult one for them. But
I think. Sorry, Gareth, I think that's why as well we introduced, and we're the first Welsh authority to do so, the trade acceptance scheme at the HRCs. We realised that we're limited for space in certain areas like the town centre, so with this permit system allows the businesses to bring the material to the HRCs without having to put it out on the curbside, and that was one thing that drove that exercise really.
Yeah, and I was going to ask that question, but thank you, Christian. That's great, that is, because I thought the HRCs could be a solution for it.
Yeah.
But how does a commercial business then fare then with like a waste transfer note? Would they need one then to go to the HWRC?
Yes, so at the moment we've been running a scheme. It's not for residual waste, though, it's only for the recycling, okay? So all the recycling needs, if they're already a customer of ours, it's free. For the curbside materials such as cans and plastics, glass jars, bottles, cardboard, paper, TV screens, electricals, textiles, there's a full list what they can take into the HRCs on a transfer note. If the customer is already a trade customer of Merthyr Council, then it's free of charge. If they're not a customer and they're with somebody else, it's a one-off payment, and I can't remember exactly, something like either 42 or 47 pounds a year, and that is just for the transfer note. So it's no cost to the material really, it's just for that transfer note, for the admin charge to allow them access to the HRCs. But yeah, that's been up and running now for 2 years, I think, maybe a bit longer.
Yeah.
Oh, that's great.
The only, just to clarify that one as well, the only materials we take in from traders are either cost neutral or materials which will give the authority money. We don't take in materials free of charge, which is going to cost the authority for obvious reasons.
Yeah.
What about food, Paul? What about food, Chris? Will you take that in or not?
No, we don't take food because it's a cost to us. At the moment, we're paying £59 a tonne, which is obviously cheaper than the 147 residual charge. So this is why we want to get it out of the bins as well. But it's still a cost to that material. But I suppose it's something we could look at in the future. Me, Paul and Judith can have a chat about it.
Yeah, thank you guys. Thank you very much. Thank you, Jet.
Yeah, thank you. Phil?
Yeah, thanks, Chair. It's to do with household recycling, and it's to do with the strategy report, which was in the Appendix 1, about delivering some of or getting close to delivering some of the targets. There are 2 bullet points there under household recycling. I think they're on page 19, they're on 19 in the one I'm looking at. and one is to introduce or perhaps even reintroduce flexible plastics into recycling by 2027. And the bullet point underneath them, which is associated with it, is to assess the feasibility for collecting disposable nappies and incontinence pads for recycling. I know as a previous committee we've been here before, but can you give us any update about what may happen over the next couple of years with regard to those couple of items?
Yeah, I can give you an update. We did a trial back, I think it was 2017, 2018. Everything's gone a blur before COVID. But we did a trial about 7 years ago on 10,000 properties for plastic film. The whole point, I'm sorry, not the whole point, but a majority of the councils who have gone 3 weekly or 4 weekly have introduced an AHP and a plastic film with it. It's to take more of the materials out of the wheel bin. Makes it easier for the resident then with the materials they got left to put in the wheel bin. They got more space. Plastic film is such a light material and it takes such a lot to make a bale. Myself and Christian and with Judith, we're looking into now with RAP and Welsh Government to reconfigure our Unit 20 so that we can accept plastic film and it can be a direct feed into a standalone baler.
Okay.
With regards to the nappy collections, we are still looking at, but we're still looking into it, but usually that is introduced. So if you go three weekly or 4 weekly, because you don't want the resident to leave a dirty nappy in a bin for 3 weeks or 4 weeks. As you know, at the moment, we supply bigger bins for larger families, people with incontinence pads and things like that. So those would have to come back in. You know, it's a total service change we're looking at going forward to you know, for in the next 10 years, is if we do go 3 weekly or 4 weekly, then we'll introduce those two materials, which will take it out of the bin. Chris, you can give a little bit of a background on nappy cycle, can't you, where we would take it and how much a tonne it would be?
Yeah, so we had a feasibility study done a few years back with nappy cycle and looked at the costs of recycling AHPs. There's only one company in the world that actually does it, and it's based in Carmarthen. They own the patent for nappy cycling, and last year it was hit or miss whether it was going to stay open or not, because the cost of recycling nappies was so high and the gate fees they were charging was so low, and it was at, I think it was £216 a tonne at the time, they couldn't stay open. So Welsh Government subsidised the gate fee, so I don't know how much money was involved and how much money they give Nappy Cycle, but they liked the idea so much they actually subsidised the gate fees for them to stay open, because what they didn't want to do was start charging local authorities £500, £600, £700 a tonne, what it would actually cost in reality, because they were proud of the scheme and they wanted local authorities who are currently doing it, like RCT and other authorities, Bridgend, that are recycling in nappies. They didn't want them then to fall, you know, go backwards, so to speak, because they've been doing it for so long. But we are in the middle of getting updated prices for the film and the nappies, which we will hopefully have at the end of November, beginning of December, because the CAP report we had done was from 2023, so the figures are a bit outdated. Even though the percentages are right, the financials are not quite there. So, I mean, it's something, hopefully if we have it in time, it could be something that we produce, give you an update on in January or February, on the next time we come to scrutiny.
Okay, thanks. Well, just on that associated point, you know, you've alluded several times in the past and today to looking at the frequency of collection. I think if the frequency of collection is going to become an issue, which presumably it may be, the time to prepare for that is now, because it's got to be a trade-off with that. You've got to say to people, right, if we move into 3 weeks or even 4 weeks, everything like this is going to be collected every week.
Yeah.
And you've got to get that in first, because the headline will be, oh, they go to 3 weeks, what are we going to do that rubbish? Well, if people realise that every week they're going to have much more collected individually than they are currently, it begins at getting into people's heads, begins that process of thinking that way.
There's two main topics that we're discussing on a weekly basis with Welsh Government and RAP Cymru. One is the redevelopment of Unit 20 to make it all singing, all dancing transfer station, which at the moment we haven't got the room to accept nappies and bulk it ourselves, and we haven't got the room to accept and bulk plastic film. The second thing we're working on in the background, very quietly, is the frequency of collections, the rounds and everything that goes with it. Not saying it's coming urgently, not saying it's coming it'll be a political decision. But at the moment, we're all working towards trying to get that 70%, whichever way we can, and then obviously we'll present it to you for you to scrutinise.
Yeah, thanks, Paul. Appreciate it. Thank you, Chair.
Yeah, Councillor Jones just made a point in terms of the costings. There's a waste report in January. Could that be brought at that time, 27th of January, so we're aware?
The costings for nappy cyclists, eh?
Yeah.
And
film, yeah.
Yeah.
So basically, the full CAT report, is it the updated CAT report? Is that what you're asking for?
No, we don't want the CAT.
We just want to know that what it's going to cost us.
Yes, councillors, I understand what you want. Chris, we'll speak about it in the morning. We'll take things out and all that CAT report. There's no craft for it.
Thanks, Paul. David?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Just a query. There's something came up recently. My father wanted to recycle some textiles, and he didn't know what to put it in, so I gave him a clear bag. And funnily enough, a fortnight later, an elderly person wanted to recycle textiles, and they didn't know what to put it in. What are they supposed to be putting the textiles in?
If the textiles are produced on the curbside, all the crews are told, if they're clearly textiles, so a clear bag. I tell you what I used the other day, and I probably shouldn't have, but I used it. Sometimes you get so many of these charity bags put through the door. That I use one of those only because, technically you're reusing a bag then, and rather than going out and buying a new one for it. So any sort of bag that identifies it as textiles, the crews are told they should remove. They must remove.
Yeah, what happens if this lady hadn't got a bag? I can't keep giving people bags for nothing, which is what's happening at the moment.
Well, we wouldn't.
Could you give them the blue council bags or something? Offer them for people to put textiles in if they wanted.
No, the biggest problem we got with that, all our blue bags are printed up with cans of plastic written on them and all the different things.
We give bags away for food, but to encourage textiles, should we be giving away or offering clear bags?
That's something we can look into. Definitely.
If it will help, I don't know if it'll help or not, but this was certainly a pickle for this lady. What am I supposed to put it in? And people don't know, but it's an offer. So if you go to one of recycling, there's free bags to put your textiles in.
Yeah, but even if she put it out in a plastic bag, but it was identified so the boys could see it.
She hadn't got a bag. That was the problem. She didn't know what to put it in. Hadn't got any bags.
Give me an address. I got about 20,000 in the drawer, but I'll give her my money.
I sorted it out. I gave my father a clear bag. I gave this lady a clear bag, but I can't be supplying the whole of it. It is an issue, and it is an issue.
Sorry, I think the problem is that we have to be careful because ETS is coming in 2027 and we can't be seen to be giving out single-use plastic bags for material because obviously once we collect them in, then we've got to dispose of them. So we have to be careful what decision we make because, like I said, single-use plastics is a big no-no, and that's what they are.
But we want to encourage people to recycle the textiles.
Yeah.
And people, on the rainy winter, they don't want to leave textiles out, do they?
Yeah. No, I agree.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. We're going to change things up a little bit so we don't go all over the shop. So I know, Geraint, you've got a question. After your question, we'll change it to David. Okay. We'll change it to going through the pages. So, Geraint, do you want to ask your question, and then we'll go through it?
Yeah, it's associated with the previous questions. Really, is the challenge we're going to have, with clear film and nappies, etc. What work is going on at governmental level to perhaps ban the production of materials using product that you can never recycle? Are those discussions taking place?
Yeah, those discussions are certainly taking place, Geraint, and it's all to do with the PPR, the packaging regulations, and that's what it's brought in for. They're trying to force the producer to use more economical ways of packaging. So, for instance, the cost is all on the producer. So the money all local authorities are receiving now in regards to the PPR producer responsibility money, the packaging regulations, is they're trying to force the hand of the producer to use more sustainable material in their packaging. So, for instance, Coca-Cola, I'm not sure off the top of my head what the bill they had was, but it's definitely in the hundreds of millions for the packaging regulations. They're trying to force their hand to say, look, do we have to make plastic bottles? Can we put the fluid in something else? You know, and that's what PPR is meant for. So yeah, they are really, really pushing this. The scheme is governed by DEFRA, and it's been coming for the last 10 years, and only now we're starting to come into play. But we might see massive changes in the future from the production companies.
Which is only positive, isn't it, for all of us?
Yeah,
you know,
100%. Yeah,
everybody
yeah.
Struggles with how much you got to recycle, so that would be really good. Yeah,
I agree.
Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Right, so I'm just going to go through pages. Put your hand up if you've got questions. So page 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, and 27. I know, Councillor Jones, you have one on here. Yeah.
Yes, we've discussed earlier on, Chair, about putting these details in the contact magazine. There are figures in here which really hit home to me, and I'm sure it will hit home to the council taxpayers. But on page 27, bottom paragraph there, it says, and I quote, there's comparing financial rationale for our strategy. By increasing recycling rates to 70% and reducing overall waste, we could save over £800,000 of unnecessary costs a year through avoided fines and lower volumes of black bin waste. So are we going to put figures like that? I would suggest in thick red type so they can't miss it. That's the cost that's going to be if we don't achieve these targets to all the public out there.
Yeah, we can certainly look at that, Councillor.
Good. Sorry, I'm in advance. Next page.
It was his suggestion. He's jumping ahead of the gun. So I got page 28, Clive.
Yeah, at the bottom of the page, again, there's another figure there. We haven't paid any fine for not complying with the target. But there, Chair, the bottom of the page, it says, if performance in 24-25 is the same as 23-24, it could equate to a penalty of £292,000 for failing to hit the target in 24-25. Can I suggest there's another figure that you can put in that leaflet in big red type so they can't miss it?
Yeah, we can definitely look at that.
I think if it equates to, I don't think some people might care how much it costs the local authority, but if the cost is put onto them, they'll save a little bit more on what that would equate in terms of the council tax.
Yeah. The only thing we've got to be very careful is if we do hit the target, do they want a reduction in the council tax?
We just fit. Okay. Page 29.
Yes, Chair, I've got a question there, and it's referring to the figures there, starting in 2015-16, of the percentages as to where we are trying to reach up to 70%. But for 22-23 and 23-24, the figure has gone down there to 64.8 and 64.3 for 23-24. We don't know what the figure is for 24-25 yet, but do any of the officers know why those figures have gone down? Because I think that's a bit worrying.
No, we know why the figures went up previously. It was through the COVID and just after COVID. Our figures spiked during COVID and seem to have gone down gradually over. I don't know whether it's a case that people are getting complacent and not putting so much recycling out because they got room left in their bin. The old thing about going 3 weekly and 4 weekly, and I'm sorry to bang on about this, but the old point about going 3 and 4 weekly is it reduces the amount of space they've got, our residents have got in their bin, so it pushes them down the road of recycling. It's common fact that if people have got room in their bin, say putting 3 or 4 containers out, they'll just throw it in the bin if they've got room in it. And that's what we're finding on non-refuse weeks. Our recycling is a little bit more. On refuse weeks in certain areas, the recycling goes down and the residual goes up.
And I think it's important to note the Merthyr Council as well, from back then, like from 2015, have always been like the piloted authority. We were always first to do things. We were always looked up upon from the other authorities as the leader, really, in the sort of blueprint. We would be incentivised and put things in place before anybody else. And then, as Paul will tell you, they come to us then, the other authorities, for advice and best practices, because we were always first to do things. And like I said, we've achieved every single target to date up until last financial year, which is the first time we failed. So like I said, we are a bit behind the times, and now is the time, I think, for a push back to where we should be.
But just going on that point, just for the councillors on the screen, nobody is doing anything different from us. Not one authority is doing something which is brainstorming that gives them the 70%. The only difference in any of the other authorities is the frequency of collections.
Can I ask a question? In terms of, say, like Gurness, where myself and Councillor Smith are councillors, obviously it's largely owned by an RSL.
Yeah.
How much work do you do with them about them pushing their tenants to recycle properly?
We do a lot of work with them with regards to, we're in constant contact with them, but we do a lot of work with the skip days and the amnesty cleanups and things like that. If there's a problem, I got a problem from Councillor Jones today, and I won't say where the area is, but I just found out that it's owned by a Merthyr Housing Association. So obviously now I'm going to get in touch with those, because it's a flats area, to try and get the residents to recycle instead of putting bags up beside their bins. It's another issue. I know it's excess waste, it's side waste, but it's on the same level, if you know what I mean. We are working with whoever is brought to our attention, which we're not recycling, whether it be Housing Association, with the Value Homes, whichever it may be. We are in contact with them with regards to their residents and their tenants.
That's great. Recycling days are fantastic from us for councillors, but especially with the amount of fly tipping we're having. But like in terms of like who's not recycling their food waste, give them the list to the RSL, Merthyr Valley Homes, MTHA, and say right, these are the people who are not recycling. Can you community housing officers go out and speak to them and see what we can do and work together to get them to recycle?
Yeah,
it's just an idea.
We do that. Our behavioural change officer links very closely with MVH and the Housing Association, and they do loads of different things throughout the calendar year, different events, road shows. They do door knocking exercises. We done one in the Gurness a while back where we dropped leaflets off to the new side. We try and do as much as we can with the resources we got, but obviously, as you can imagine, it's quite a challenge. And these authorities who are hitting 70% as well, and who are recycling the food waste at a higher rate than what we are in most other Welsh authorities, they're not sort of urban areas like us. They're quite affluent areas as well. That's what you've got to take into consideration, So it is a challenge. Don't get me wrong, it is a challenge. But like I said, we are doing everything we possibly can to get into these communities and get people listening. But it is difficult, if I'm honest. It is difficult.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Leighton, do you want to come in?
Yeah, thanks, Lee. Yeah, Christian or Paul, I know, like Paul said, he's banging on about the 3-4 weekly, and I got to ask the question. You say these other ones, the only difference is they are 4 weekly or 3 weekly or whatever. Do you think, as a town of Merthyr, and we know the issues we've got, that will work you? Or do you really believe that will work you? Because I don't know, with the way they dump rubbish now, fly tip now. It's just a question. I was wondering what your views are on that.
But personally, I think it will work. I think it would get us. I would get us up towards the 70% target. The only problem we've got within the Merthyr Borough is that we've banged on, like I say, for 10 years to residents, and there's certain residents in certain areas. No particular area sticks out more than another. You know, certain affluent areas are a little bit better recycling, but that's by the by. You know, there's certain areas within the borough that still will not participate in our recycling. They put bags out every week, and if the bags are not taken, then, as you say, Paula, they throw them somewhere or down a tip somewhere or on a grassed area. But there's no evidence at the moment to show, and it's very new for most authorities who have gone 3 and 4 weekly, there's no evidence to say that that is contributing to fly tipping.
Is it a blanket then? Sorry, Chair. Is it, if you introduce a policy of that kind, could you drip feed it into the areas that you have the most problems with to see whether it affects the behaviour in those particular areas? Because from what you've said, there are particular areas where the issue is greater than others.
Yeah.
Or you could go to the areas that are best doing it, best practice, and see how their targets will rise.
Mm.
Do you know what I mean? Because if they're doing it now and they got less of a bin, then over time, obviously, if they're doing it anyway and they are good, you know, at it, they're going to improve the target anyway. So would it be better to do it that way, and then we could introduce it maybe to, I don't know.
Yeah, well, everything will be looked at before we even suggest it to any politician, any of you politicians. Everything we looked at, all the stats will be taken, all the evidence from other authorities will be given to you. It's not a case that we'll just say, right, next week we're going through weekly. I don't think we can go and do certain areas. I think it would have to be a blanket throughout the borough. I don't think we could target certain areas because certain councillors won't be pleased if if we pick their areas out. And especially with regards to the rounds, we're a very small authority, and we've only got 3 residual refuse rounds, which is 2 big ones and 1 small one. 1 small one is for the open access. You know, it would be a logistical nightmare to try and pick out areas that we go 3 weekly and 4 weekly and expect then the driver to remember, or Carmel's 3 weekly, but Gellydig is fortnightly, and Pentabach is. I don't think we could do it that way. It has to be a blanket or nothing.
Yeah.
Be interesting though, wouldn't it, to see the difference?
Yeah.
I was told not to ask any 3-week questions earlier by certain individuals.
I was told not to talk about it.
I haven't. Okay. 29.
Just one last thing, Councillor Davis. I'm really pleased to see you all on board with it.
No.
Talk about yourself, Paul.
That was a good try. I was on board on the fence. I was like, but these are woo. Anyway,
Chair, on the bottom of page 29, under there in waste composition, the last paragraph there are 3 figures in there which hit me when I read it. 52% of the contents of the wheeled bins, of the black bins, could be recycled, with 30% being discarded food waste. If all material recyclable from home and Merthyr Tydfil was placed in the correct bin, the savings would amount to around 565,000 each year. This is another, or the figures in there. You're doing this article and putting notices on bins, etc. Those are the figures that need to be highlighted. Do you agree?
Yeah, I agree. And to be honest, though, like I said, there wouldn't be a need to even talk about 3 weekly or 4 weekly at all if we could get our participation from customers, the food. If we could get participation from 50% and 48% set out up to around the 80% mark, we wouldn't even be having the conversation about 3 weekly. because you would over exceed the target by getting participation up past 80% mark.
Okay, thank you.
In terms of our, a question around the food waste. I just come to, where does the food waste go? Does it get composted? What's the process, or does it get converted to energy? What?
Yeah. Our food waste goes to. Oh, sorry, Paul. Do you want to?
Oh, go on.
So our food waste goes to anaerobic digestion, so it gets turned into energy, and then whatever's left, then it goes to fertilise all the local farms in Brecon and Powys.
Okay, that's great. Thank you. Okay, moving on. Page 30. Anything? 31. 32. 33.
Check on page 33, at the bottom of the page 33. Can somebody tell me about the free paint on the bunt? Because I'm having a load of complaints that they're not taking paint down there.
I can explain that one to you. So,
right.
As you know, a few years back, we'd done a business case to save, as a financial savings, stop accepting paint on the HRCs, which was approved. So we cannot take paint to be recycled because of the cost of the process is so expensive. But what we did do was introduce a scheme where if the paint was deemed good enough for reuse, we would take it and then we'd give it back out to the local public. Unfortunately, the shed is completely chock-a-block and nobody in the last 7 months has come for a tin of paint. So we're unable to take any more until we offload what we've already got. The process is, if anybody asks, the process is that if unwanted paint, you should take the lids off the paint, leave it harden. You can knock the contents out into your wheel bin and then recycle the containers.
But if we knock it off in the wheel bin, you can put it in a plastic bag.
A plastic bag and bring it, or plastic bag and bring it to HRCs for general waste.
I got to ask this question because everybody's been having a go at me. They've been up there taking tins. Are we going to leave this in or put something else in it to explain to the residents what they're going to do? Because if we just read that, you just take the tins and bits and pieces and they're left in the car. As I said earlier on, they dump them.
Yeah, what we'll try and do, Councillor, we'll try and put some comms out around that as well on our social media pages and just explain it thoroughly that the contents of the paint tin has to be emptied before bringing the cans into the HRC. Right. They don't have to put it in the bin, like you said, they can bring it in a clear bag or any sort of bag and put it in the general waste as long as we can see the contents is only paint.
Okay, great. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
That would be great because I didn't know that as well. So
okay, yeah.
Yes, that'd be great. Okay, thank you. Page 34.
Yes, Chair.
Josh.
So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 stop down there. It's about household collections, and it says that assist residents facing challenges with their waste management. We just looked at the figure of 52% constantly put in recyclables in the bin, and 30% of that is food waste. Can I ask, are we going to assist the residents facing challenges? Because for me and for many other people who are putting their food waste where it should be and the recyclables where it should be, what else have we got to explain to people or assist them? Could one of the officers give me examples of how to assist these people?
I think it's more of a, Councillor, I think it's more of a behavioural change situation. So if you look at that figure, it does look damning. 52% of recyclable material is still in the bin. But if you look at where we've come from in 2015 to today, that would have been 100% or 99%. So we are making big strides with the small team we have in waste. We are making big strides, and 52% looks like a critical sort of number. But compared to where we've come from, we are getting better. So it is a behavioural change thing. So the people who are on board with our recycling services now are the residents who are keen and want to do it. Now our challenge faces the people who still know about recycling and know what they have to do, but they just don't want to do it. That's our next step. That's our next stage. So how do we get somebody to recycle who doesn't want to recycle. And unfortunately, the only answer to that is to reduce the capacity of the bin. Unfortunately, and that is why we're talking about 3 and 4 weekly.
So, Chair, do we knock the door when the bin is full? Because you see a lot of bins with the lids full, and we all know what's in there is food waste and recyclable materials. Because an ordinary bin, even with I suggest with a family, perhaps with 2 children, the black bin should not be full if we're carrying out all the recycling and all the food waste. So do you knock the door with a full bin, open the bin, and perhaps, and this may have been done, empty the bin with the resident there and show them the amount of recyclables in their bin and food waste should be there. Is that the sort of thing that we have done?
Yeah, so what we're doing currently as part of the Welsh 70% target, no side waste policy, is that we are already up to 4,000 enforcement letters sent out this year to date, which is almost doubled what we sent out last year. So what we do is that if a bin is top batting, or if it's excess waste by the side, it gets a tag and it goes through that process. If it goes to the Welsh Government target policy of 70%, that no side waste policy, the bags are checked in the bin. And what will happen is a letter, because it's too early in the morning for us to be knocking properties, it's like 6:30 in the morning, 7 a.m. So what happens is the wardens come back with maybe 40 to 50 each of enforcement sort of infringements against that addresses. And depending what stage that resident is on, whether they'll get sent a first tag letter or Section 46 or fixed penalty, depends on what stage they're on. But in that letter that gets sent to them, it states exactly where they went wrong. So it states basically, we have found plastics in your bin. This has to be put in your blue curbside sack. Or we have found food waste in your bin. This has to be put in your food waste cardie. If you don't have a cardie, please contact this number for a free bin. You know, all the information on this is sent out on a daily basis.
Okay, thank you for that answer.
No problem.
Thank you. Page 35, 36, 37.
Yeah, sorry, John.
36.
36.
Mr. Jones.
The second paragraph down there, again, we're talking about the 52% of waste placed in black bins could be recycled, etc. The end part of that paragraph, the disposal of recycling in the black bins costs the council approximately £550,000 annually, and is a loss of materials which can be sold to support the delivery of service. Over £500,000. For me, that is another figure that can be added to the other figures that we talked about, because some of these figures, Chair, are absolutely staggering.
Yeah, I think all the figures throughout the report, and then share it with us, and then we can.
Yeah, I got one other question. Sorry, Chair. A bit lower down under the household recycling centres. First off, there it refers to the feasibility of the cost of space on the sites for recycling new materials such as mattresses and carpets. I thought the recycling centres already take carpets, but they don't, do they?
Yeah, we do accept carpets and we do accept mattresses. The problem is with materials like that. So with the carpets, bulky waste, wood, these sort of DIY waste materials, what they call them, the markets are very, very volatile. So that has been looked at now in the background because, for instance, wood waste, this time last year, we was getting 85% recycling rate back for it. Currently, we're having 20% biomass. That's how volatile the market is. It depends on where the wood is needed. So if the wood is needed in manufacturing, that's where it'll go to. If it's needed in biomass to fuel the energy companies, that's where it'll go to. So that is currently being looked at now in the background. I think I have spoke to Paul on it briefly, that it's very new. They're looking at the all Welsh sort of solution to it. So they are looking to like commingle every Welsh authority into one for these types of materials, where they would be bulked at a facility central to everybody in the south and west, I would have thought, and then they will get the best recycling rate possible by selling it to different markets on the commodity market. So it's that is currently being looked at now, but those materials we just discussed are very, like I said, very volatile. 1 minute you could be having 85%, the next day you could be having 20. It just depends where the market goes, and it does switch very quickly.
But these, I hear what you say, but these are recyclable materials, aren't they? The carpets.
Yes, and some council, and we do take them in the skip sites.
Yeah.
Yes.
What Welsh Government alluding to there, the size on our skip sites, we can't treat the material before sending it. So, for instance, they would prefer us to rip those mattresses apart and take the metal springs out of them and just send the flux somewhere different. So what in the strategy is saying that we haven't got the capacity to do that at the moment with the size of the sites.
Right. What happens when there are people out there who haven't got transport to get large rolls of carpet, old carpet and mattresses up to the recycling centres? What happens to those? Are we able to collect these, or because I'm absolutely amazed if we see mattresses dumped at the side of roads nowadays?
Yeah, we got a bulky item system that they can. It's a charge to it, but they got a bulky item system that picks up fairly large items and disposes them for any residents.
Right. And is that working?
It's brilliant.
You know, for mattresses and carpets and things, items like that.
Yeah, it's an online booking system that anybody can book whatever. We also offer with that system now. We also offer any metals. We offer free as charge because we get an income from it. So if there's a metal, say for instance you've got a metal framed bed, you just want to get rid of the metal framed bed, then we pick it up free of charge.
Right. I used it last week. It was highly effective.
For metal?
No, for 3 settees.
Oh, right. Yeah. Oh, I've used it in the past, yeah. Okay, thank you, Jane.
Okay. Page 37, 38, 39, and then page 40, 41, 42, and then it's onto the rack report 45, 46, 47, 48, 49, 50, 51, 52, 53, 54, 55.
55, Chair, it's that round table there about various clothings, general, etc. I couldn't find it in here, but it comes under another heading. But I didn't realise until recently, when I was up at the Dowlais Community site, that there's a facility there to take shoes, any shoes, shoes that are years old, because they can be taken apart and the materials used. Now, how well is that known to the vast majority of the public that there's a facility for shoes, old shoes?
Yeah, again, that goes out with all our communications on the curbside and the HRCs. We promote it as much as we possibly can. We can promote it even more. It's part of the textiles and footwear collection banks. Again, we have to be a bit careful with this at the moment because the market's not looking too clever. So we used to have a good collection service for our textiles. The contract is due up now, and we open. You know, it's a regional contract between 12 authorities, and Merthyr Council are the lead authority on that. So we just out re-tendering for a new contract now. So we don't want to promote that too much until February, until the new contract is in place, because the market has really, really been shooken up from China with the textiles. To be honest, we were having income of about 340 pound a ton, and now we're looking at about 30 pound a ton, going cost neutral possibly, because the third world countries in Africa and places like that, they can buy brand new clothes from Shein in China cheaper, and we can sell them second-hand clothes into the market. So, and with the tariffs and things like that, it's been introduced. It's been quite difficult and quite challenging over the last 3 months. But we're procuring a new contract now, so that will be promoted when the new framework's in place. We currently come to the end of the original framework we're in now.
Okay, thank you. Okay. Next page, 56. 56, 57, 58, 59, 60, 61, 62, 63, 64, 65, 66, 67. Done. Okay. No more questions? No? Any comments?
I let's go on.
Phil?
Yeah. What's the history of black bags?
What question?
It's a question.
Oh, sorry.
We're going to go back to questions. Phil, go on.
I'm just interested, Paul, in the fact you've got waste enforcement officers who have to open the black bags. Wouldn't it be better if they just had clear bags? If we encourage people to use clear bags, you could see them what's in their bags, couldn't you, without ripping their black bags to bits. I'm just interested in why people have always, and it's not just us, everyone uses black bags for waste. Wouldn't clear bags be a lot more? We don't
supply anybody with bags.
No, I know that. Okay, I'm thinking generally then about the waste disposal industry, which has always put rubbish in black bags. And I think now we come around to a situation where, and you rarely see clear bags for sale in retailers.
Because the reason is because black bags are cheaper. Black is cheaper for some reason. Like in our depot, we've got all different colour bags. We got the yellow bags, the red bags, for needles, for hazardous waste. We got all different bags ready. We don't give out any bags at all. And when we're asking the wardens to go through the bags by the side of bins, we tell them that they need to be very careful, especially this day and age with needle stick injuries and what have you. So I don't think there's any way around it. We can't enforce people to use any colour bags, especially when they're breaking the law by putting them out anyway. So with regards to that, I think
perhaps it would just be an education thing, just a general thing to take the major retailers and start using clear bags instead of black bags.
I think in our literature we talk about black bags, black bag day, black whatever. So maybe changing that wording. Or clear bags. So
there's no mention of bags in our literature, only when we're talking about excess or side waste, because we don't want people to use bags.
Okay. Any more questions? Sorry. Like comments? Councillor Jones.
I heard we've had a very interesting discussion, interesting questions, but I do think that we need to emphasize and up our game as much as possible. If we still put in 52% of the black bins contain recyclables, when we provide the bags, we provide the notices to tell them what should be in the bags, and the 30% of the food waste is there. We need to get all of that out of any of these black bins. I just find it ludicrous that in this day and age, and it may be happening at every authority in Wales, but it's happening here, and we, as an authority, we need to do everything we can to ensure that there are no recyclables at all in any black bin, and certainly no food waste at all. The sooner that is done, the better. As the figures show, the costs to the authority are enormous for the public continuing to do that.
Thanks, Councillor George.
Any other comments? No? Nobody's indicating. So I'd just like to thank you, Paul and Christian in particular, answering the amount of questions. Thank you very much. Yeah, you're welcome to stay. I'm sure you'd love to, but you have to go. But yeah, we'll see you in. We'll see. What?
See you, John. Yeah. No, I was just going to say thank you very much.
No, thank you. We'll see you in January.
Yeah,
Okay,
thank you all.
thank you.
Thank you very much.
Take
Hey,
care.
boys.
Yeah. Okay. Moving on. Agenda item 6, MD Buildings report. Councillor Jones, are you presenting?
Yes, please, Chair. MD Buildings report. This report is the outcome of the Scrutiny Committee's request to focus on 3 historic buildings which have been empty for some time: the former General Hospital, Theatre Royal and the Miners' Hall. Scrutiny members asked what actions are being taken to bring these buildings back into use and how resources are being used to tackle the associated issues with the buildings. This led to a scrutiny workshop on the 17th of October this year, with the presentation from that workshop being attached at Appendix 1, and the findings of that workshop are contained in this report for members' consideration. The table at 5.5 summarises the powers available to the Council and the actions that can be taken under each of them. Further information is available in the appendix. It was highlighted at the workshop that there are limitations to the majority of powers within that table, and that longer-term solutions require significant resource from private and public sectors. At the workshop, the constraints of developing these buildings was discussed, and these are highlighted in section 5.9 in the report, with verbal updates to be provided at this meeting. The appendix also gives information regarding previous planning interaction over the past 10 years or so for the 3 sites, as well as surveys by the local authority and CADU. I don't know if Zoe or Craig has anything to add to that, Chair. Thank you.
Anything? All okay? Zoe, all good?
Apologies, took me ages to get on there to accept a few things. No, thank you, Chair. That was summarised well, so nothing further to add from myself.
Yeah, thanks both. Okay, open up to questions.
Chair, can I start?
Yeah, Councillor Jones.
First of all, I'm more than pleased to see the report coming forward to this committee, in particular about these 3 particular properties. They are eyesores. Let's start off with the Miners' Hall. And I've got a few questions there. First one is, can you confirm from any one of the officers who's going to deal with the answer that you know exactly who the current owner is of the Miners' Hall?
Sorry, Chair, if I could just come in there. Yeah, in relation to the verbal update on one of the actions on page 72 of the report, we are still in the process of sort of confirming the ownership. I think there's a sort of quite long, convoluted history in terms of the ownership and different businesses on this property. But I think this afternoon, actually, I think we have managed to sort of find that, and we will be contacting the interested parties in the next day or so.
Right. This building has been empty. I've lost count. It's gone into the 4th decade, but certainly 31, 32 years, this building has been unoccupied, with 2 fires taking place there. Is there any reason why over those last 30 odd years we've never identified clearly who the owner of the building is?
I think the issue there is that I think at one point, I think the majority of people were sort of fairly certain that it was owned by a particular family that sort of had properties in Merthyr previously. But I think, however, sort of as time's elapsed, deaths in the family, properties being transferred over, different companies being set up in relation to businesses that might have been at that property recently, it's been a bit of a muddled picture. But I think, given what we've sort of found out within the last couple of days, I think we've got a starting point now to sort of take it forward and establish contact to try and move something forward on that property.
So what you've identified so far is the owner of the building a million miles away, or is it fairly local?
The interested parties that the interested parties that we've identified recently are a little bit closer to home,
right?
And we're hoping that will be again, that'll be the starting point then to sort of get things moving.
Because I understand, Chair, if you go on Company's House, that's where you find current owner. So I presume either yourself or other officers have gone through that process as well.
Yeah, we've been going through that process as well as doing sort of land registry property searches in order. Like I said, it happens quite often, I think, in terms of properties such as this. They can be sort of quite complex ownership situations. So
right.
Hopefully, everything crossed, that we've at least got a starting point on this one now.
So, Chair, now that we've identified the current day owner of the building, what is the plan going forward there? Because this building is in the centre of town. It's derelict. There are people passing this. It's a constant item on Facebook and other social media outlets. Are we going to sit down with the owners and find out what his or her future plans are for the building?
I think that would be one of the first steps here. Once we've established contact, we'd look to sort of discuss what their intentions, if any, are with the property, and then look to determine a way forward then.
And I understand, Chair, that of the three buildings we're talking about, Miners Hall is listed, and that's a real serious consideration that we have to take into account. I mean, for example, over the last 30 odd years, and it's in the papers, the last survey that was undertaken by the Miners Hall on page 72 was taken over 10 years ago in 2015. And that was a report undertaken by Capita Simmons and commissioned by the Tydfil County Borough Council through Welsh Government funded Vibrant and Viable Places programme. So is it possible that we could commission another survey of the state of the building, and are there funds available to do that?
I think the issue we'd have at the moment is there isn't a budget for that in relation to these properties at the moment. But just to sort of clarify that situation in terms of surveys and the buildings, I think we have attached, I can't remember whether it's Appendix 1 or Appendix 2, but there is the sort of buildings at risk register reports from CADU, and they said whilst I think 2016 was the last time that a full structural survey was done on the property, a condition survey was carried out in 2022 on the property by CADU as part of that work.
And yeah, thank you for the answer. And on page 82, this begs the question, over the last 30 odd years, it says that 2016 planning enforcement case, repairs notice served following the full council report under the 1990 Act. Is that, to your knowledge, is that the only time we've served a notice on this building in the last 30 odd years?
For the purposes of the workshop, we only looked at the history back for the last 10 years. But when I did the search, I can't recall anything coming up on property previously.
Yeah. And my other question, and this applies to the other two, well, certainly one of the others, is that the state of the buildings that they've left in. For example, the miners' hall has got a mini jungle in front of it. We have identified the owner. They own the building. They are then responsible for keeping this place, up to date and tidying up. To my knowledge, since the gates were locked many years ago, and I think I was instrumental on one of the scrutiny committees for ensuring that was done, no one's been inside there, to my knowledge, and cut all this overgrowth. And underneath the overgrowth, there's about half a ton of rubbish. So we've got powers, have we not, within the authority under various acts to ensure that these owners accept their responsibilities.
Yeah, we do have those sorts of powers, either through planning or potentially through environmental health. And again, I think in the example of the miners' hall in particular, once we hopefully re-establish contact, that will be sort of one of the first things that we'll be reminding them of in terms of their responsibilities for those sorts of issues in regards to their properties. Yeah.
So, Chair, now that we've identified very recently who the current owner is, and you're going to have, I presume, a follow-up meeting with them, will we as an authority, and particularly as a scrutiny committee, be advised in the not too distant future what has been the outcome of those discussions?
I think, yeah, we could certainly provide an update on these three properties in a future report. Yeah.
Thank you.
Can I just sorry. In terms of what Councillor George just asked, page 82, planning enforcement case, repairs notice served. Who did that get served to? If we didn't know who the owners were.
I haven't got that report to hand. Sorry on that one. I can.
If you could find out that.
Yeah, I can check that and get that back to.
That's great. This is a little bit of a comment, but it is a comment. So it's a little bit disappointed that it's taken for us to have a workshop, to push for a workshop to actually find out who the owners are.
Yeah.
So, I don't know why we've had numerous reports in Regen over this building for years and years without nobody identifying who the owners are. Craig, did you want to come in there? I'd seen a hand go up. I don't know. Is it?
Sorry,
got loads of screens in front of us. So, yeah.
Yeah, I got questions that I want to ask on the old general hospital, but I'll come back up.
Okay. Councillor Thomas and then Councillor Smith.
Thank you, Chair. My question is more general, really, because we've been going round and round in circles with these properties, for years. Ever since I became a councillor, and I know other councillors have been frustrated long before me. So we know there are two projects underway at the moment in Merthyr, right? We're hoping the funding will come to for heritage projects, one being the synagogue and the other being the Cyfarthfa Castle, right? So we know that's going ahead, and we know we've had money spent on the YMCA at the moment. But the question is, with the General Hospital, the Theatre Royal, and the Miners' Hall, and you can lump the YMCA in this, what are they going to be the uses in the future? Because we've got to think, the well-being of future generations out here, right? So what can they ever be again, right? We know that social clubs are struggling, so that's the Miners' Hall that closed years ago. So what could the Miners' Hall be? Now, I think that's where perhaps we've got to support the owners, or, we've got to bring some powers to bear. We all were in a workshop a couple of weeks ago about the homelessness and Housing Act, which is coming before us. So could the Miners' Hall be another Marsh House too? Is that a possibility? And I think this is where we got to get to, and hopefully, we can help, find a solution for these properties, because they're beautiful buildings, where they all are, right? So what can they be, for the future?
Yeah, I think, like I said, the principle of using any of these properties for residential use would be acceptable. I think some of the discussions that are underway on General Hospital and Theatre Royal are to bring forward those properties for those uses. But I think ultimately what it all goes back to is that issue of finding the money and the resource to do it. Like I said, there are limited resources available. Like I said, the powers outlined in the report as to what we can do, a lot of those are sort of just sticking plaster measures in terms of emergency works, or just sort of making the building safe for the time being. The sort of most realistic option that would actually deliver something in terms of CPO in these properties is the one where the greatest resource required. And like I said, you are talking significant resources in terms of finances and people to sort of drive it forward in order to bring these properties forward for whatever use.
Chair, sorry, can I come in there also, please? Yeah. Councillor, that's the biggest challenge for us, I think, is the long-term sustainable uses of these buildings. You mentioned the castle and the synagogue. I mean, the castle's in our ownership, and we're working with the foundation to look at sort of driving the redevelopment forward. And with the synagogue, fortunately, with that being in private ownership, they've identified a long-term sustainable use for that building, and have worked, extremely hard to try and secure funding to bring that project to fruition. There are a lot of challenges surrounding these privately owned listed buildings, as we know. And we take the General as an example, and it's something we discussed in the workshop. That's changed hands a number of times, and ultimately we need the private sector to be working with us and looking at solutions for these buildings. But as Craig said, helping drive that project forward and coming to us with potential proposals as well. I think with the General and the theatre at this point in time, we have engaged with the owners or the development team for the properties, and are discussing, potential opportunities for which then we can, support the development of that proposal and look to secure funding. But it's very difficult for us to drive forward a potential project on a privately owned property when any funding that we secure would require a sort of match funding component as well, which the private sector would be required to secure, and that sometimes is again very challenging. So we have a number of challenges on these buildings in terms of driving them forward, and resource is one of them, but also the amount of money that is actually in the system. You mentioned the YMCA. That was a considerable cost, as we know. So it's trying to understand the cost of the redevelopment for each of these other properties, and how we can progress forward in securing that funding as well, and creating something that's going to be beneficial for the local economy. And of course, Resi is going to be a key priority for us to consider as well.
Well, thanks, Joe. And I just think that when we're having conversations, because we have spoke to many of these developers, and they have come to us, we have, right? Yeah. But I think with this new Homelessness and Housing Act that's coming before us, and we know the challenges that's going to bring, can we have those early conversations, say, yeah, that could be a place, that could be a building, as long as, the Welsh Government, stumps up the money to redevelop it.
Yeah, and I think there are particularly on the General, there's positive conversations ongoing, and that's not exclusive to future developments. That does also include them maintaining that property in the short to medium term as well. And I think we met the owner 2 or 3 weeks ago, Craig, and they really bought into working with us and trying to identify some of those solutions to keep that building to keep that building tidy in particularly as on a key gateway to the town centre. So they recognise their role in this as well. And they're really, really keen to work with us now on the future redevelopment of that property. Obviously, there are other constraints around funding that require consideration, but we will be able to work with the team to discuss those and try and find a way forward.
Thanks, you.
Okay, Councillor Smith.
Thank you, Chair. The Miners Hall is a listed building. Have we applied to Cardew to delist it, like we tried to do with the Royal? Because it's a lot of land there. You just mentioned about housing and everything else. Perhaps somebody could buy it better if they lock it down a bit of land. And land empty is more money than a building there. So have we tried that? Because up in there is a mess in there with the Miners Hall, St. Tydfil around the corner. It's just a sham. So have we looked at that?
I think we may be sort of getting towards that point now where that sort of option may need to be explored. But again, I think we do still need to bear in mind that they are currently listed buildings, and that sort of solution really does need to be the sort of last resort.
Craig, I'll accept everything you're saying, but at the end of the day, it's just a front in it. There's nothing there bar the bar on the side of the tram road of the building, but then there's no good to nobody. So I think you're going to look at that serious, I think.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you, Chair.
Thanks, both. Councillor Johnson.
Yes, thank you, Chair. In relation to the Miners Hall, it's I think I'm correct in saying that it's in a conservation area, for one. I'm not in the head, Craig. And secondly, am I right in saying that it's also within the boundary of this town board, which has been allocated £20 million for the next few years, £2 million a year, and that money will start arriving into the coffers of the town board next April. So there are few issues that we can deal with, which for me seem to be on the side of the Miners Hall that we can explore. And the other thing is, we were very fortunate and innovative, for example, in the various grants that we matched to undertake the work and make it good and make it safe in the YMCA. Are we saying that there are absolutely no funds available for historical buildings like the Miners Hall?
There are funds available, but in order to apply for those funds, we need to have, ordinarily project proposals. Now, the difficulty on this, and the difficulty with a lot of the buildings in the town centre, is that they are privately owned. Therefore, we would need to engage with that owner in order to move forward with any proposal on that building. So if we're able to make contact with the owner of that building, I mean, absolutely, they are the discussions that we can have, as discussed this evening or this afternoon, around, what are your future plans for the building, and are there any opportunities to work with them in order to secure funds to undertake any surveys, etc., on that property. Within the VVP programme, we secured funding in order to undertake the relevant surveys, because that programme was made up of and included a number of buildings, to which the Miners Hall was one. Therefore, we were able to utilise that funding to undertake that structural survey. But in order to proceed any further, we would have required a project proposal. So it's very challenging for us to proceed with any sort of structural investigations on buildings that are not in our ownership.
So, Chair, through you, are you saying, Zoe, that there is a great limitation nowadays on funding available to carry out a further survey? Are you, perhaps I'm wrong, but are you indicating that the survey perhaps should be undertaken by the owner that we've recently identified?
Absolutely. Ordinarily, you look at any of the sort of private sector development we've taken forward in town, they would undertake the relevant surveys, etc., on the buildings that are in their ownership, and then have discussions with us then around any future proposal for that property. There have been occasions where they've worked with us to secure external funding to undertake those structural reviews and structural surveys, but they have engaged us and approached us to work with them to help secure funding. So ultimately it is sort of their requirement to be undertaking those surveys and maintaining those buildings, really, not the local authority, as they aren't in our ownership.
I mean, sorry, I can't believe that in nearly 10 years, well, it is 10 years since the last survey done, that the Miners Hall structure has improved. I mean, it's open to the elements. There's no roof there. I mean, I think everybody needs to know what the up-to-date position is with the condition of what's left there. So, for me, I think that it requires a further survey, with the fact that the last one was 10 years ago. You accept that, Zoe?
But the last one that we undertook, yes, as part of the VVP programme, as Craig updated earlier, there have been subsequent surveys through CADO, but absolutely, if we can make contact with the owner, we'll be having conversations about whether any further survey work can be undertaken. At that point, we could potentially look to support them in terms of funding, but there isn't anything available at this point for us to take that forward as an authority in lieu of discussions with the private owner.
Okay, that's okay. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, I think it's been alluded to, but as soon as you've spoken to the owner, can we just be kept abreast of what's happening, please?
Absolutely, Chair. Yeah, no problem.
Thank you. Phil, and then David, do you want to come in on that point?
My question is associated with this point. Yeah.
Yes, if I can, please. Clive, you mentioned £20 million over 10 years, but I'm happy for Zoe to correct me on this, but it starts off at a much lower level and gradually works up. So it isn't £2 million per year for 10 years. It starts much lower and then increases over the years.
Oh, supposed to heard of
that. Is that the case? Like it was 2 million originally over over 10 years, but then we were told it was going to be over 7 years, and then obviously it's become wider than just the town centre. So could you briefly give a quick update of what it is?
Yes, so in terms of the boundary, Councillor Jones was correct earlier. The Miners Hall would feature in the boundary of the Plans for Neighbourhood programme. The boundary does extend across a wider geographical area of Merthyr, and particularly within year one, there is a lesser allocation and it will build over time. So the plan is due to be submitted on the 28th of November, and there will be an opportunity then within the initial 4-year investment plan, because that's what the focus will be within our submission on the 28th. There's a sort of 10-year vision and a 4-year investment plan. So we'll be working with the board then to identify capital projects for inclusion within the programme, and how that will be sort of delivered is due to be determined by the board. So just for clarity on this, we are the grant recipient body as the local authority for that £20 million, but ultimately the funding and how that will be allocated is determined by the Plan for Neighbourhoods board, and then we will service that board, and we will have an officer that will support the management of that programme. So it's 75% capital and 25% revenue, so there is a smaller revenue allocation. So we're happy to share the exact figures after this meeting, because I don't have them to hand, sorry, of what capital will be available over the first 4 years. But those projects will be determined, as I said, by the board over the coming months.
Okay, would we be the plan you submitted? Would you be able to share that with us? Would we be able to see that?
I would imagine once it's submitted, yes.
Okay. In terms of the
sorry.
Go on.
In terms of the Plans for Neighbourhood programme, we are very sort of open and transparent about all decision making, etc. So currently all minutes of meetings, etc. are uploaded onto our website. We have a dedicated page, and that's details of the board, all the minutes, and agendas for the meetings. So the likelihood is, in terms of the approved plan, and I'm not sure, Chair, whether we'll be able to share that once it's been submitted or once it's been approved, but I will double check that information. But everything will be uploaded onto the website. So, you know, when we are in a position to share, more than happy to share that. I'll just have to sort of clarify when we're in a position to share.
Okay, thank you. When obviously when the fund was announced, you made a board, and you know the makeup of that board was primarily around the town centre. Obviously, the geographical area extended. Did the board change at that point, or did it just remain of the town centre representatives?
Okay, so the board makeup was aligned to the UK government guidelines that were issued with the then long-term plans for town programme. So the requirements are: we have an independent chair, we have our local MP, we have 2 elected members from the local authority, and then representatives from a series of, you know, a number of organisations from within the community. So we've looked at an RSL link. Oh, apologies, my light keeps going off. I'll have to sit in the dark for a minute. We've got a rep from the RSL, we've got a rep from the BID, we've got a culture rep, and then we've got a rep from the sports sector and the faith sector, etc. So this was all in line with guidance. So we've looked at sort of wider advocates from across the borough, or that would represent the borough as a whole, not necessarily the town centre. So in light of that, we haven't amended any representation of the board at this point. It is something that we've discussed briefly with the chair, and we are looking at further representation from wider sectors such as health, etc. at the moment. So there might be an opportunity for us to review that board membership, but at this current point that hasn't been extended with any further invitations. I think we do have to be mindful of the amount of representatives we do have on the board as well, to ensure the programme remains manageable.
Okay, but just you, RSL is probably MTHA, but then they don't represent my community in terms of which I represent. You know, but they own a town. They also own a building in the town centre, which is a historical building. So it doesn't necessarily represent all of the local authority. That's the point I'm getting at. We digressing from what we heard and discussed anyways, but we can pick that up another time, I think.
Yeah, absolutely, and we can report the views back into the board. As I said, it's something that we have discussed with the chair, and it's something that we can look to address, particularly now that that boundary area has changed. So we'll take those comments on board, Chair.
Okay, thank you. Phil, do you want to?
Yeah, it's connected with the miners hall, and I'm quoting something from the report of the meeting that was held on October the 17th, and it's in relation to ownership. And there's a page there where it clearly outlines what councils can do legally with regards to these kinds of buildings. And I quote, if a listed building, which I presume the miners hall is, if a listed building is in disrepair, councils can serve a notice requiring the owner to carry out necessary repairs. If ignored, this can lead to compulsory purchase. Now, I know compulsory purchase has a cost, but would that be something which the council would consider taking forward? Because it's written there that this council has the powers to compulsorily purchase a listed building if the owner ignores the request to carry out necessary repairs.
Oh, sorry, Craig.
Sorry, no,
I was going to go then, and you were going to go. Do you want me to go and then you come in?
Yeah, go on.
In terms of the compulsory purchase, that would be, the point of last resort. And, in order for us to take a CPO forward as well, we would need to have a sort of longer term solution for that property. Absolutely, it's something that would be considered in relation to any of the buildings that we have been talking about. But I think we absolutely need to explore every avenue before us, considering a CPO. So I think particularly on this building now, as we are looking to engage with that owner, we really need to explore their position and what other options we have in terms of enforcement before we even get into that point, really. Craig, do you want to come in as well? Oh, sorry.
I think our fear is that you can serve notices on these, to be called them absentee landlords or whatever they call them. You can serve notice on these, and they just seem to ignore these requests to make good or attempt to make good these properties with impunity. So at what point do you get to a situation where you say, well, that's enough now, you've had plenty of notice, you've had plenty of opportunities to create, to make good these properties. At what point do you finally decide that enough is enough and it gets taken over into council ownership, perhaps utilising grant money which may be available?
Yeah, I think ultimately it boils back down to that resource issue. Like I said, those types of notices, those repairs notices that we can issue, essentially when you issue those, you're almost committing the authority then to go down that CPO route. So it's almost at that point that you need to be certain that you've got the resource to even sort of follow that process through. Otherwise, again, you just end up in that situation where you're going sort of round and round in circles.
Which I think is what's happening now. People are going round and round in circles, and that circle seems to be never ending. Then it just seems that there are powers that I read in this particular document which the council can invoke if they wish. But it seems to me that these owners are as errant as anyone I've ever seen, to be honest. They've ignored these buildings for years, and the whole environment of this town is suffering.
Yeah, like I said, the powers are there, but ultimately it boils down to whether the resource there is there as well behind it.
Yeah. Okay, thank you, Zoe. Thank you, Craig. Thank you, Chair.
Change of the other building. Yeah. No more questions, mine as well. No? Clive?
Right. So it's the second of the three buildings, the former General Hospital. So we was undertaken there 10 years ago. I mean, this has an unbelievable checkered history because we're on our fourth owner at the moment. And I know that in the report there's a meeting been taking place recently on the 24th of October with officers of the council and the owner. I presume that he hopefully had one or two of his development staff with him. And this is, the fourth owner. I mean, with the other three owners, we've had several false dawns since this property became vacant 23 years ago. We've had two planning applications for housing on the site, which has been approved. And now I believe that we are talking about a third possible application as a result of the meeting on the 21st of October. Unfortunately, this building is in my ward, and I've spent the last 21 years writing emails on behalf of the residents or having to put up with all sorts of things around this derelict building. So the reason I'm saying that, all that is, Craig, I don't know whether Zoe was there in the meeting as well on the 21st of October, but I understand that they have promised to submit, is it a planning application before the end of this year? And having had these discussions so recently, do you think that's definitely going to happen? Or are we into another false dawn? Because unfortunately, with this fourth owner, who we met on site, Councillor Vokes and myself, in July 22, with his then development staff, and made all sorts of promises. And here we are, November 25, nothing's been done. So do you consider that this is now back on the road and something's going to happen? I think the one thing that's possibly with us on this is the fact that buildings not listed, like the Miners Hall and the Theatre Royal.
Yeah, I think the discussion that we had, there was myself, then sort of colleagues from the housing department, and Zoe was at the meeting with the owner and the architect carrying out work on their behalf. And yes, you're correct. As this building isn't listed, there's a little bit more flexibility as to what you can do in terms of redeveloping the property. But again, there still needs to be justification of what you're doing because of the historic importance of the building, and it's in the town centre conservation area. They've indicated that they would hope to get a pre-app in, I think, by the end of the calendar year. But again, I think that's dependent on them discussing with potential development partners. I think, again, we've sort of pointed them in the direction of the RSLs that operate in the area. And I think there are existing relationships between the architect that's working on behalf of the owner and some of the local RSLs as well. So hopefully that'll mean that those discussions will take place. I think ultimately what it boils down to is ensuring that there's a viable scheme that can come forward that will produce a sustainable use for the property in the end. But I think the initial meeting, and again, I think it is only the first time I've met with the current owner of the property, and the initial meeting was certainly positive, and I think things hopefully will move on over the next few months on that one.
Yeah, Chair, I mean, perhaps Thomas is my middle name, so I've got a large doubt about different things that are told to me. But I understand, Craig, that there was a previous meeting earlier this year, start of this year, with the owner, etc. And then silence. Nothing's happened until you arranged this meeting on the 21st. A pre-application is one thing. It depends then whether they proceed and submit a planning application in your opinion, and Zoe or anybody else who was there, when do you think the planning application might be submitted? Because, you know, this owner has owned this building for 4 years. And here we are, nothing's happened in the last 4 years. Nothing.
Yeah, sorry, Clive, yeah, I think you're correct. Yeah, we did meet with the owner, and I think it was a different developer partner they were looking to work with on the scheme. And it did, yeah, again, we indicated at that time that we'd have a pre-application submission in pretty soon after that meeting, which never materialised. But I think, given the fact that we sort of directed them and they've got that contact with the local RSLs that housing and regen and planning have all got existing relationships with, and it makes that sort of first contact a lot easier. I think we're all a little bit more optimistic at this point, and I think if everything was to go as smoothly as possible, you could look at having a new application for a rise scheme in sort of within 6 months' time, but that's with a very fair wind.
Right. Okay. Could we be advised of any progress on outcomes of, for example, pre-application, both myself and Councillor Minette Vokes as the board members, but particularly this Scrutiny committee as well? Is that possible?
I think we can certainly provide an update to Scrutiny committee when a pre-app comes in. I'm sure you'll be emailing on the phone to me, Clive, as soon as it comes in. So yeah, I can update you personally as well.
Yeah. Are you aware that the front wall, curtilage wall of this building and the side wall, we've had the local graffiti artists, you know, they're out in numbers at the moment, and it looks awful. I mean, it's been empty for the last 23 years, but sometime in the last few weeks, someone decided it would be beneficial to have, it looks even worse than it is now. Now I know it's privately owned, but perhaps I'll be pursuing it elsewhere as to whether this graffiti can be taken off. It looks terrible.
Yeah, I think that sort of issue now that we've sort of established the contact with the owner this time around, I think he stated at the meeting that he's got someone locally who can sort of visit the site to sort of address the sort of minor maintenance issues like that. So yeah, we can make contact and look to address that.
Okay. Thank you.
And would that contact be able to address like clearing up rubbish as well?
Yeah, like I said, at the meeting we did sort of remind him of his responsibility in that respect, and then also sort of state that there is sort of formal enforcement action that we could take. So yeah, hopefully we'll be able to contact him and get those matters dealt with before it gets to that stage.
Brilliant.
He did seem very committed to working with us to ensure, you know, that the site is maintained, and the fact now, as Craig said, that he's alerted us to the fact they've got a caretaker, for want of a better term. You know, we can feed any concerns back to him and monitor that site a lot more closely to ensure he is undertaking the relevant duties as well.
Brilliant. Thank you. Is there any other questions on the hospital? No? Okay, we'll move on to the Theatre Royal. Have we got questions on the same thing?
Yeah. Well, yes, I got a question because I've read the report. Again, this is a listed building where we've got problem because it's listed. This has changed hands as well a few times. Work has had to be done, Chair, in the front facade because the various bits of that dropping onto the highway. That's been done. I understand the cost of that although the work was done by the local authority, the charges have been put on the current owners. But having read the report and the implications here, there seems to me, Chair, that there's a lot more problems associated with this building because it's got issues because of the possible flood of it. I mean, we got the Morris Brook behind it, and there's no roof on it. Is it fair to say that this building may have gone past the line where it's, very little that can be done to get this building back into any sort of use?
I think it's difficult to say at this stage that we're at that point. But it's the work that we've been engaging with the current owner with over the past couple of months since the roof collapse in the summer. We are now looking to progress that work sort of sooner rather than later, in the next couple of weeks, I think, given that we're moving into winter, there's the potential for further deterioration. I think once a presence on site is established in terms of sort of addressing the immediate issues, you'll be able then to have a much better idea as to what the condition is of the building as a whole, and then what the options might be moving forward.
So, Joe, whoever's going to be on site there, are they going to do, are you intimating that they'll be carrying out some repair work, or are they just carrying out some sort of survey on the state of the building?
The method statement that we've had from the current owner indicates that there'll be scaffolding going up surrounding the sort of rear elevations, and the first priority would be to remove the asbestos fly tower that can be seen at the rear of the building, so the highest part of the building.
Right.
But then, because the building is listed, and the sort of approach you have to take is to do the minimum required to make the building safe, I would imagine it's more likely to be at that point, once that immediate danger has been removed and there's scaffolding around which sort of acts as a bit of a catch-all and sort of stabilizes the building to a point itself. That's when sort of further inspections, further survey work might be required then to decide what the next steps would be.
And Chair, is the owner paying for all that, the scaffolding, whatever else is removal of asbestos? Is the owner paying entirely for all of that?
At the moment, work has been progressing with that assumption that the owner will be carrying out the works. However, given the time that is now advancing, it may well need to evolve to the point where we'll be serving a notice and potentially carrying out the works in default ourselves.
So that leads me to a further question then. Have they made promises to you which haven't come to fruition as to, i.e., doing this work?
They haven't made promises yet. Like I said, I think the reason why nothing has happened at this point in time is there's been sort of back and forth on the exact method statement and the exact works that need to be carried out. But I think
Right.
we're nearly there in sort of finalising exactly what needs to be done, and then it's that point then that we determine what happens next.
And my next question is in relation to, the other two. Will you, now that seems to be coming on site there, will you keep us informed as a school committee as to what the outcomes are happening and where we're going to go over this particular building?
Yes, certainly. I think providing updates on these three buildings is certainly something we can do then for scrutiny moving forward.
But at this moment in time, because the work was done on the front end of the building, I wrote you on behalf of somebody who wasn't in my ward who was asking the same question. Particularly the front part of this building, it is not in a state that it's a danger to the public. That's correct, is it?
Yeah, the initial inspections that have taken place since the roof collapse in the summer have indicated that there isn't that level of risk with the front of the property. The primary risk at the moment is with the sort of the main auditorium that's behind that front block.
Yeah. Okay, thanks.
Thanks, Clive. Thanks, Craig. Any other questions on Theatre Royal? No? Nobody's indicating. Open up to comments?
Yeah,
That's what George.
First of all, I'm grateful that this report has been put together and the fact that we've had the workshop. But Chair, we've got 3 buildings, all of which have been empty for countless years. In the case of the Miners' Hall, well over 30 years. They are 3 buildings in really the centre parts of town. And yes, they're all privately owned, but we need to be, really on the backs of all these owners. One, to ensure that as they the owners, until they come forward with plans and plan approval is given, they are responsible for keeping certainly the curtilages of the buildings tidy, clear of litter, fly tipping, etc., and that they are secure. The 3 buildings are a constant source of complaint by the public. Over the years, I've read too many times from the public, they are complaining and asking what the local authority is doing about it. When I try to explain to them, for example, about the old General Hospital, and the issues that we've got because they're private owners, and particularly in the case of the Miners' Hall that is listed, you can see sometimes their eyes glaze over because all their view is that the local authority can snap their fingers and deal with it overnight. Now, I understand that's not the case, but what I'm asking is, and these particular buildings, you can have all the plans for years hence as to what we do in the town centre. But I really put it out there, Chair, that these 3 particular buildings in their derelict state doesn't really do anything for the town. So the sooner that we can, and meetings have started in relation to the Miners' Hall and are ongoing as far as certainly the Miners' Hall and the old General Hospital. But I really think that it's now time, as we've done with the YMCA, together with the private owners, to get things trying to be sorted out for the future. You could do other things in the town centre, but when you see these buildings that are complete eyesores, the problem is there. You're walking past them all the time. People are constantly saying, what is the authority doing about it? We now know a lot more about the issues there. And all I ask, Chair, is that we are well informed from going forward from these as to what the issues are and what's been done about the state of these buildings.
Thanks, Clive. Any other comments? No, I think Clive said it all for us. I think we've progressed rapidly over the last couple of months with these buildings in terms of what our knowledge is and, giving you direction of what we want as councillors. I hope we can be kept updated fully going forward. We want to support you to get to where we need to be as well. So thank you all for the workshop and thank you for answering all the questions today. I forgot to do this for the other report, but does the committee feel that we addressed the recommendations in each of the reports, the first 2 reports? Do you think we've given them a good going over? Considering we still here at 6:15 and we haven't gone through everything, I think we did. So
I agree we are.
Yeah. Thank you. Those some of you might have to stay, will you, for the next report as well? So if you could go, you're welcome to leave as well. So we'll move on to item agenda 7.
date on empty property strategy 2022 to 26. I think it's Councillor Salmon presenting.
Good evening, thank you, Chair. Just before I go on to introduce the report, I want to make you aware of an error on table 1 in regards to the names of wards. It does say Pentre Park, obviously this should be Plymouth. Okay. In April of this year, the Scrutiny Committee were given an update on the empty property strategy 2022 to 2026. But they asked for a further report with specific information on how many and where long-term empty properties were located on a ward-by-ward basis, along with information on how long these properties have been empty for. All this information is included within today's report. This report also updates on the progress of dealing with 6 of the most high-risk properties, with the information available in appendices 1 to 6. I'm sure you'll agree there's quite a lot of detailed information within this report, and Sean James, the author, is on hand for any questions members may have. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks, Dave. I'd like to open up to questions. Questions. Councillor Smith first.
You're on mute.
You're on mute, Bill. Sorry.
On mute.
There you go.
Right. We've got this report in front of us, all these empty properties causing major problems in the borough. But why can't we get the addresses out? Because at the end of the day, if they promise to do this, I'll keep an eye on it myself, not coming back to committee all the time.
Sean, you're on mute as well.
Thank you, Chair, for reminding me. Thank you, councillors. The list of premises are provided by council tax, and we're quite privileged. A lot of council tax departments and other local authorities are not willing to share this, but it's on the proviso that it's kept confidential. And really, we're here to give you an overarching position on the strategy and to say what we're doing with those high risk ones. So yeah, I'm not able to provide those details, I'm afraid.
Fair enough. Thank you very much, Sean.
Okay. Councillor Leighton, did you have a question? You've gone off my screen. No? Okay, thank you.
I got a question.
Councillor Thomas.
Thank you, Chair. Just a question really for either Sean or Paul. Due to the premium coming in for the empty home properties, do you believe this has had the desired effect in bringing some of the long-term properties back into use?
Yeah, we've got a steering group set up, and we generally meet once a month or once every 2 months, depending how busy other things are. But in the last meeting, it was reported by revenues that there seemed to be definitely a positive impact on the council premium and making people think twice about what the future of their properties are. So yeah, early signs show that there is definitely an impact, and it's something I think we've got planned as a report or sort of a press release or social media article to be released shortly on that, with a bit more detail around that information. But yes.
Because on the table on page 96, where it's got the figures there, you know, from 1 year all the way up to the 10-year programme, you know, the 5 to 10 years and the 2 to 5, they look quite small now in number, because I think if I recall back 3 or 4 years ago, you know, those type of empty properties, the long-term empty properties were much higher than that. They were up in the hundreds. So it must have had a positive impact. It must have.
Yes, and it's still early days, and we're keeping an eye on that, but early indication is that it is having the desired effect.
Good to know. Thank you.
Councillor Jones?
Yeah. There's 6 properties been listed here as high risk. Having read it, I certainly know one of the 6. It can't be any other one other than that. That particular one happens to be in my ward. And again, I've been writing about that to all and sundry over the last 21 years. And in this particular case, Sean, because I know you're aware of what's gone on, but this particular property, and we've had it in writing, was originally, because the length of time that has gone on, the fact that eventually, after years and years, so I was advised, they had identified who the owner was after a long, convoluting process, and that it was property was left in a will to someone who had no interest in this property whatsoever. And that led on then to the distinct possibility that this building was going to be demolished. It's in a dreadful state, absolutely dreadful state. And if anybody's never seen it, it's a complete and total eyesore back and front. And the last I heard was it was going to cabinet because there was funds available from the Welsh Government. As long as we applied for it and we observed the criteria, the building was going to be demolished. Now, there seemed to be a complete about turn, and we are talking about, and I quote, requisite legal notices have been served on the premises. Failure to comply with these notices will enable the local authority to consider undertaking works in default with a view to enable a charge on the property. If the notice is not complied with, the local authority can undertake the works in default. The cost of these works can then be placed as a charge against the property. This will enable the local authority to utilise its debt recovery powers under the Law of Property Act and enforce the sale of the property. So my question is, in view of what's gone on with this, why has it come to this stage when notices have been served? And I can remember one of your colleagues served the notice on the property. I think it was posted on the front wall or the gate, and I was advised that it complied with the law. But all that seems to be swept aside now. And we are serving a notice, I presume, on the current owner. Do we know exactly who the current owner is?
I'm not sure if I can speak about individual properties, and I'm not sure which one, I can guess which one you're talking about, but yeah, I don't think I can give specifics on specific cases.
Well, we don't, we don't want to discuss the individual's date of birth or anything. It's just it's highlighted under property D. Is it D? It is.
Yes,
D.
yeah, that's right.
Yeah. Could you, surely we could. Paul, did you want to come in on that?
Yeah, I think without going into the technical details of enforcement notices served and the individuals contained, I think to answer Councillor Jones' question, and I apologise, Councillor Jones, if it wasn't made clear to you historically, I think in terms of us demolishing a property, the scheme you're referring to is a Welsh Government loan we could apply for.
Yeah.
The situation we find ourselves in with this particular property is the cost of demolition of that site would far outweigh what the value of the property and the land is worth. And that would leave the council in a position where we wouldn't be able to repay the loan in full because the actual value of the property and the land wouldn't equate to what we would borrow in order to carry out the works. So obviously that would leave the council having to hold the budget for the difference between the two. And I think that is the difficulty we now currently face, in that obviously with the budgets that we've currently got, we wouldn't be able to cover that loss. The other options that we've got is to go to enforced sale, to still pursue some recoveries work on the property, and then to go to enforced sale. And then that potentially, if that was successful, the property would then go to market for somebody to come forward to purchase. But of course, the caveat with that is any individual coming to purchase would face the same concerns that we have, in that the site would have to be demolished, and obviously the value of that site moving forward. So it is a difficult scenario for us, in that we have no budget to cover that additional works. So we're currently working with additional notice on the landowner, with a view to coming up with a suitable outcome, which could involve discussions with RSLs or with internal council departments who may be looking for properties. But unfortunately, it's not as simple as us going in, demolishing the site, because there would be a loan to repay.
So just so I got this crystal clear in my mind, Chair, we are serving notice, it seems to me, for at least a second occasion in the last few years. We know who the owner is. If the owner then, I think they're given, is it 28 days or thereabouts, with reply, if there's nothing coming back from the owner, what are the next steps then? Have we got powers to insist that this property goes on sale?
Sian?
No, we don't have powers to insist it goes on sale at this stage. If a notice, as suggested, if it's property D we're talking about, is served, then there is an enforced sale procedure, but that would mean that the authority would undertake the works in default, place a charge on the property, try and recover those costs from the owner. And it's quite a lengthy process, so this is not going to happen in the next 6 months. It's likely to be, within the next 2 years. So, and works in default is not mandatory for a local authority to undertake. And that's correct of this notice and many of the other notices that we serve. And I think Mel wants to come in, who has been involved in all of these cases. Thank you.
Who's Mel?
All right.
Hi, sorry, I was having a bit of problem putting my camera and my mic off then. Yeah, just for clarification, Councillor Jones, Chair, this property, there is no known owner for it. This is what's making it being so difficult with dealing with it. We haven't been able to establish ownership of the property. There were indications that the last occupant of the property was the owner, but there's absolutely no proof or any evidence that that is the case.
So how can we serve a notice if we've got no known owner? Because that's what it says here. And the legal notices have been served on the premises.
Yeah, where we don't have an owner, the notice is just served on the owner.
Yeah. And this has been done before, hasn't it? From my memory, we put a notice on the gate or the wall or whatever, because we didn't know that, we had no idea who the owner was.
Yes,
so,
that is correct.
So you just have to excuse my frustration over this, because I've been banging on it for the last 21 years. It seems to me, from what is proposed here, and it could apply to one or two of the other 6 high risk, that in 10 years' time, this building, for example, could still be standing in the totally derelict and eyesore state it is now. Is that a correct assumption?
As long as it doesn't impact on other premises, then yes, that could remain in that condition. At the end of the day, similarly to the previous item we've heard, the responsibility is on the private owners. Unfortunately, in this case, we don't know who that owner is. We have to be careful with, undertaking works, and there's a risk then to the local authority. So we need to be careful on balancing, when we're serving notices, whether we will be undertaking works in default or not, but addressing any public health issues at the same time.
But am I right in saying that serving a notice on not knowing who the owner is means that as an authority, as officers, you're banging a head against a brick wall because nothing further is going to happen?
Sometimes we have a legal obligation to serve notices under statutory nuisance and so forth. Whether there's an owner or not, you can place a notice legally, attach it to the dwelling, as has been done here. But then progressing beyond that can be banging your head against a brick wall. There may be occasions where we do need to take the decision to undertake works in default, which may unlock other actions such as enforced sale.
So this particular property, and then others might be in the same boat, but this one is not detached. On the one side, it's attached to another property. Have we got an obligation as an authority to residents where we get something like this, which has gone on for decades, and we're into a fourth decade of this property, and it looks as if it'll be years and years before anything further has been done?
Yeah, we have no obligation to the neighbouring resident, although that property, I understand, is vacant, so there is no resident there. It only becomes an issue for us as a local authority if it causes a statutory nuisance. For example, if it causes dampness to the neighbouring property. But in that case, we would be discharging our duty by assessing that nuisance and serving a notice, and it could end there. Unfortunately, these are the responsibility ultimately of the private owners. That this report just highlights to you, if you look at it in its entirety, there are a lot of empty dwellings across Merthyr. And we're prioritising now by undertaking a risk assessment. So these are 6, and if you look across the 6, there's some good news there as well in bringing some of these back. We're trying to nudge these difficult cases to come back into use. And yes, as we've already heard, the council tax is another lever. We're working across the council in trying to get some of these back. These are the difficult ones, and some of the ones you've mentioned there are the extreme difficult ones, which are going to take a lot of effort on behalf of the authority, but there's only so much we can do.
Yeah. But if we've done everything as an authority over the last 30 years to try and identify the owner, and surely there must be a legal process somewhere, some act where you advertise this property, like, I don't know, the London Gazette, and nobody comes up and says, yes, that's my property, I'd love to do something with it. There's nobody there. It's complete silence. So do we have any powers at all after serving this notice to instigate that this property can be taken over by the local authority, and we decide what to do with it? Is that available to us?
There are powers. Sorry, go on, Paul.
Yeah, so in terms of the notice that will be served is for us to carry out some remedial or work that we require to be done on the property. If that work is not done, then works in default can be undertaken by the authority, and then we can put a charge on the property. If that charge is not met, then we've got a legal process. We can go to enforced sale. And then on enforced sale, we can recover the costs that we've incurred. And obviously the property will then go on the market via our estates department with a view to somebody coming in and buying the property. So that is the legal process we can follow. What we can't do at this stage, for the reasons I explained with the loan, is we can't come in and take the loan from Welsh Government under the current financial restrictions we've got, because the value of the land that we've received is substantially less than the loan we'd be borrowing. And the authority in its current financial position hasn't got the budget to cover that shortfall. But what we're looking at doing is by putting this notice on, is doing some remedial work. And then obviously we've got an opportunity then for an enforced sale moving forward if the individual doesn't come forward. And then that puts an opportunity to put the property on the market for us to recover our costs. At that stage, obviously a new owner then taking over would have responsibility, and that property then would be brought back in line at the private owner's cost.
So if this is advertised in enforced sale and nobody comes forward, what happens then? You keep putting it up for sale.
And I think that is the issue that we have with that process, that potentially it will not attract anybody, and that is a difficulty. There's other options out there, compulsory purchase orders, there's others, but there will be a risk to the authority on those. And as Paul has explained, there is no budget.
Well, Chair, if this is put on the market, I can't think of anyone who would be daft enough to purchase the property, because it's going to cost them thousands and thousands, even to start with.
Can I not selling it?
No.
We want somebody to buy it. Don't stop now.
No.
I think it's the process we have to follow, Councillor Jones.
Yeah.
And I think if we do get to that stage, then obviously a report will be brought back to relevant cabinet or council for consideration of the options that obviously we have in the budget and whether there's growth within budget required in order for that property. But that's always with the caveat that obviously this could be replicated across the county borough. And the authority hasn't got a limitless budget that we can go resolving these issues. But, you know, I take your point that, if we did go to auction and nothing came forward, then we would cross that bridge should it come to that situation.
Yeah. Just to changing the subject, looking at the figures on page 96, there's 899, presume that they're all vacant, and a few hundred of those you can take out because of stipulations in the revenue department, those who are collecting council tax. So there are various several exemptions where, for example, if somebody's in residential care, the property could be vacant for a few years. But basically, there must be something like 650 or 680 properties which at any one time are vacant throughout the county borough. But on the figures that Councillor Karen Thomas referred to, for properties vacant over 5 years, there are still, by calculation, over 100 of those empty, completely empty, of 5 years or more. So there seems to be, hell of a lot of work that still needs to be done on properties that have been vacant for many years. And I know there is work being done there, but it's taking up a lot of time and energy, and contacting the owners and telling them, look, you've got an obligation, this property deteriorated. Is there any possibility that we can do more than 7% of these buildings, the work we're doing a year? And is it possible to change that figure from the percentage, the actual number of properties that we are dealing with there's figures in here separately somewhere in our school.
Okay, Sarah, do you want to come in?
Yes, please, Chair. Yeah, just a couple of things. In terms of the figures, Councillor Jones, we will bring an update is coming back to this Scrutiny Committee in April, I think it is, on the forward work plan, where we said we would give you a full update against the whole of the strategy. So that will include the actual numbers of properties as well as the percentage. But I mean, the target, just to reassure members, the target for the lifetime of the strategy was 200, and we're still on target to actually meet that and potentially exceed it. And last year, in our corporate self-assessment sort of information that we've got, I think we hit near towards the 8% figure rather than the 7%. I just really wanted to reiterate that there is a huge amount of work going on behind the scenes across departments through the steering group that Sian and Paul and Mel are involved in. And as Sian said, these are very, very complex and long-standing cases, a lot of them. I do understand members' frustrations, but what I can assure you is that, you know, since I started to look at this within the last year, we are making real progress in some of these. And as Sian sort of pointed out earlier, in the entirety of the report, there is some really, really good progress being made on some of these properties. We don't have a budget, as they've said, and there is no justification for the council to pick up a loan payment and or a shortfall in budget, not an insignificant shortfall on behalf of a private owner. We just, you know, we couldn't justify that. So therefore, we have within compliance and within the legislation that is available to us, within the powers available to the authority, we are trying to do what we can for each of these properties. And, you know, again, when we come in April, we'll give you another update on the 6 high-risk properties. But there is a lot of, whilst we know the potential difficulties with enforced sale and things like that, that's why the steering group is having specific conversations with other potential ways of utilising this property in the future. So I think, you know, I just wanted to sort of say, you know, on behalf of the team, there's a huge amount of effort and work that goes on, like you said, in each of these, and none of it is easy. But and like you said, in terms of the 5 to 10 and the 2 to 10 years where they've been empty, we agreed last time with you, I think, that was the next sort of cohort of properties that we'll start risk assessing, and that is in train. But I just wanted to say, Chair, you know, still a long way to go, but we are making progress, and we will continue to do what we can within the legislation and bring as many of these properties back into use as we possibly can, because we know that there's such a demand in terms of housing across the borough. Thank you.
Thanks, Sarah. Is any other questions? No, nobody's indicating. Comments?
Well, in view of what Sarah's just said, they look forward to the updated report in April. Should be some more interesting facts and figures in there for us to look at.
Yeah, any other comments? No? I know, like, it came across that we targeted a couple of properties and it looked a bit negative, but it does look like a lot of work has been carried out, and it does look like we're on the right road. We will be invested in April to see what comes back and see the new figures, but thank you all for your hard work. It doesn't go unnoticed, but you know, we've been talking about some properties for a long time, and it gets a bit frustrated. So I know you were frustrated, but we don't have any other avenue to take our frustrations out on. So thank you all for all your answers. Does everybody feel like we've done this report justice? You know, given a good going over. I know we probably. rushed it maybe a little bit. It is now nearly 7 o'clock, and it is really, really cold in here. I don't think you can't see that on screen, but it is. So thank you all for coming and answering our questions and for the report. Keep up the good work, and I'm sure Clive will be messaging you about that one property. So yeah, thank you all. Okay, moving on. Agenda item 8, forward work programme. Yeah.
Thank you, Chair.
Obviously, it's a fluid document. Happy for you to come forward if you've got any recommendations for future reports. The corporate risk workshop is to be held on the 11th of December through Teams after a pre-meet. The workshops have been arranged for every scrutiny as recommendation by GAC. Although some members of the scrutiny may have done the risk workshop part of other committees, it is still recommended that you attend this workshop as it will focus on risk relevant to this scrutiny, and we could identify potential items on the for our forward work programme. The next scrutiny is the 16th of December, and we have community safety and destination management plan. SPF is penciled in for December, but this is obviously dependent on the government announcements.
Yeah. And with the empty buildings that I mentioned on there now, we've already dealt with them, and they'll come up again the 16th of December, I think.
April, I think. April is the next.
Yeah, they're on
we moved it all around. Also. We did, yeah. That is that one.
Which empty buildings is on one?
Like we moved some forward. Remember, we mixed them up. We were going to do the miners today, and then we moved them all around. Yeah. So
Sorry, Chair, can you tell us what the new date of the meeting is on November? Because I'm going to meet in my book here.
December the 16th.
Oh, sorry.
December the 16th.
I do apologise.
That's all right. Councillor Thomas.
Sorry.
Chair, I can't see the plan in front of me right at the moment, but do you know what we've requested for a little while now about having a report on the transport through the town centre and parking around the town centre? Has there anything come in for that?
No, we haven't got it. I don't believe we've got anything on there. But
sorry, Councillor Thomas, we've got it in our additional items for consideration box at the end of the forward work programme, traffic and parking in the county borough. But we haven't actually placed it into our forward work programme yet, so
yeah,
maybe that's something.
We definitely look at that. We got
the people in the county better know, isn't it?
Yeah, okay. We'll have a look where the gaps are.
Sure, we need to be more specific at county better.
Yeah, I think the town centre, because I think it has to be the town centre, because for me it's the current situation with parking and the transport layout is having a detrimental effect on the retail businesses, so I think it's something I think we need to look at.
Do you want the geographical area? Just do you want to go up to the retail bracket? Where do you think?
Yeah, sorry, Kate, I've got to go up to the retail park.
Yeah,
and up to Traego, because people are blocked in up there. Tell you what, now you're shocked. On Christmas coming now, God help us.
Yeah, I'm happy with that. And then up to top of Pump All Ice.
Yeah. And by the moment church.
Well,
we've got to look at that badly, because on afternoon between 3:30 and 5 o'clock is chaos.
Okay, so they cross Mormon Church, about to cross Breaker Road, and then down, and then up to the hospital.
Yeah.
That, and then maybe the synagogue area down to Snow's Garage. Maybe
all of that.
Yeah.
So when are we thinking of putting this on?
We'll have a look at the gaps, and then is there a particular? Do you want it sooner rather than later? We'd have to probably give 2 scrutinies.
You're not going to get it in before Christmas now, will you?
No.
So you probably
no.
Yeah, I think you'll have to give the officers some time as well to, get the reports together.
Yeah.
Probably February.
Yeah, going to be January, February, isn't it?
So it's March the 10th or 27th of Jan, so...
we've got 3 reports already in for January.
Yeah.
Plus pending anything with SPF.
10th of March is the next one then.
Is it
10th of March.
What up to January?
2 for 10th January to 27th. We've got nothing for February. There's every 6 weeks in it, so we're quite late in December.
There's no items on for the 27th of February?
Yeah, it's the 27th of Jan is 3 items.
Yeah.
And then the next one is 10th of March.
So
another one's on that.
2 items for 10th of March and leisure performance report and the freight bin.
You could probably look at it there.
Is get it in somehow.
Well, we need to give notice to the officers, don't we?
Yeah, well, we do it in...
I think that's long enough, I think.
Yeah.
Okay. Moving on. Agenda item 9, scrutiny referrals. I don't have any. Item agenda 10. Feedback from scrutiny activities. We had the LDP workshop. The report is there, pages 139, 140, right at the end. I haven't got anything else. Item agenda 11. Any other business deemed urgent by the chair? I have none. I'd like to bring a meeting to a close. Thank you all for attending.